Hello everyone, and welcome to the Narcissistic Abuse and Recovery Care Network. I'm Dean, your host. Today we'll be presenting episode 7, The Narcissist Blind Puppet. Narcissists often have a blind puppet within their midst, often a mate or a spouse who is the subject of this. A blind puppet is merely what's referred to as an inverse narcissist. An inverse narcissist is the mirror image of a narcissist. An inverse narcissist suffers from a condition which is very similar to Stockholm Syndrome, which I will explain after. The victim becomes sympathetic to their narcissist. This is usually done through years of repetitive abuse, through valuing and devaluing of the spouse or the mate. The narcissist basically teaches the inverse narcissist to be what they want them to be. And after a while, the abused inverse narcissist starts to justify their abuser's behavior. The spouse of a narcissistic abuser becomes literally like another type of victim. It's the type of victim that has been conditioned over time to really understand what they're dealing with their narcissistic abuser. They suffer cognitive distorted reality in relation to what the narcissist is done with them. And the narcissist has basically trained them to succumb to the reasoning that the narcissist wishes them to see. So after a while, the inverse narcissist sees this abuse as acceptable by the spouse or victim because they have basically become brainwashed. And the spouse or victim now is basically living within the narcissist's world of fantasy. Now, this abuse that an inverse narcissist deals with can be of a very extreme nature, physical, verbal, basically anything that any other appliance would deal with. The difference is that the partner almost accepts this abuse in almost a masochistic way. They're reduced to a puppet figure that the narcissist uses as their plaything, in an even deeper way than other appliances that they do this to. The spouse loses their whole identity with their narcissist and basically becomes what the narcissist or what their narcissist wants them to be. This occurs much like Narcissus did with Echo in Greek mythology. The narcissist removes the spouse's voice as being important and replaces it with their own ideas and psychotic ways of being, molding the spouse into a compliant appliance in their harem garage. They've been devalued and brainwashed, and the spouse becomes basically, at times, a shell of themselves. Again, this is a mind state that is very similar in some ways to victims of Stockholm Syndrome. Victims of Stockholm Syndrome are basically usually people who have been taken hostage by criminals, and as they have spent time with their captors over time, they have become conditioned to accept some of the ideas of their captors, or to even sympathize with their captors, to the point where they no longer see them as criminals, and they actually sympathize with whatever behavior their captors are actually executing against them. This is essentially the same thing that happens to an inverse narcissist. And for myself, knowing a little bit of what I had to deal with my own narcissist, and knowing a little bit of her history with her husband, I can see this possibly being very much the case, because I was privy to some information over years of time of dealing with her, where if I look at it and analyze it from a psychological standpoint now, I can see that this abuse probably was incurred upon her spouse during the time that she has been with him, because she would cyclically put him through valuation and devaluation depending on what it is he did. She would do this as me well in the short time I was with her, and probably as well with all the other appliances that were around her. So what this essentially does is, after time with the spouse or the mate, it cripples them emotionally, and they actually lose some of their ego as the spouse or victim gets molded into whatever the narcissist wants them to be. And they essentially lose themselves and go on forward with the narcissist, having conditioned them to follow through years of abuse. And this is truly something that happens to the inverse narcissist, where they have to possibly be dealing with a situation with their narcissist, which may be even more intense and more prolonged over time than what the other appliances may be dealing with. This is truly the mindset of the narcissist when they're dealing with spouses, and it's very much part of the victim of a narcissistic abuse who has a wife or a husband or any type of close mate that they may live with. This is functionally how they deal with their spouses, and it can be awful for the spouse to have to deal with this. I can only imagine for my own narcissist spouse what he may have to have dealt with over the years, knowing that there were periods of valuation and devaluation with him that went on and off for a very long time when I was friends with my own narcissist. So this is basically just an explanation of an inverse narcissist and what they really are in this way. And the inverse narcissist really does get turned into a blind puppet in this instance, and they get used and abused by their narcissistic spouses in a way that changes who they are. And it's got to be, from my perspective, a very difficult situation, having dealt with my own narcissist and knowing what could have possibly gone on with her and her spouse during the time that I was friends with her, or after the time that she returned to this person, and I continued to see her basically cheating on her spouse and going out and doing other things with other appliances that she brought into her fuel matrix after her period of time with me. So this has been my explanation of the inverse narcissist and the blind puppet theory that goes along with that. I hope you enjoyed this explanation of what goes on with spousal abuse, and hopefully this will help somebody out there who may be experiencing this now and may not see themselves as an inverse narcissist. Perhaps this will wake someone up if they see it, and you'll actually be able to identify that this is what's happening to you, and possibly that you have been brainwashed over time to just go along with whatever the narcissist desires. And if this is the case, my viewpoint here is this, and the best advice that I can give you is get out. Get out of that abusive relationship with that narcissist that you're with. Recognize what's going on, and recognize that you're worth a lot more than that, and that that person is just abusing you for their own gains. And if they're doing this to you, they probably really don't love you in this way. That's the one thing you can solidly say about narcissists, is if they're using you in this way and subjecting you to this type of abuse, this is not love. This is abusing somebody and using them as an appliance. And the sooner you can recognize this, the sooner you can probably save yourself from any continued abuse with a narcissist, and you can get out and hopefully make a better life for yourself. So this has been episode 7, The Narcissist Blind Puppet, and I'll be presenting episode 8 coming up very soon.